Friends in Low Places, The Changeling the Lost Story. Jacoby finished his drinks, but he didn't linger over his table as he might have another evening. Instead, the ogre shouldered his pack once more and stepped out of the bar's rear entrance with his crook in hand. The back alley was full of sagging bags of trash, overfilled dumpsters, and it reeked of urine, but it still managed to be a step up from the establishment Jacoby had just exited. The ogre wandered through the alleys, following his mental map as he stepped over detritus and avoided the cracks and holes hidden by puddles of stagnant water. A dirty hand reached out from a cardboard box as he approached, the palm turned up. The hand was wrapped in a ragged, fingerless glove that had been patched a dozen times.
"You're one of Roar's people, ain't you?"
a soft voice said. Jacoby stopped, peering down into the darkness. A figure looked up at him through tattered hair, but despite the shabbiness of their clothes, their eyes were sharp. The ogre sniffed. He smelled magic. Promise magic.
"He knows me,"
Jacoby said.
"Who are you?"
"Just one of the festival goers,"
the person in the box said. Jacoby snorted and nodded. He'd heard the term before. Eyes, ears, and occasional allies of the summer court in general, and the king in particular.
"I heard word there was a hunt for Wolfon. You heard anything about that?"
"Wolf's an endangered species,"
Jacoby said, glancing back the way he came.
"Chit for chat."
Sure,
the figure said, turning their hand back over.
"If what you got is good, I'm happy to share and share alike."
"Wolves don't belong in the city,"
Jacoby said.
"You try to cage them in, they slip through the fences and go back to the wild."
"I heard that,"
the figure said, nodding. Jacoby had a feeling they were weighing that tidbit, wondering how grateful Roar would be to hear that Wolf had slipped through the net set for him by Autumn's rival.
"What's a fellow with one good eye and two good ears need to know?"
"Which gate has the most autumn eyes on it at the moment?"
Jacoby asked. The figure's eyes narrowed, and their mouth pursed in the shadow of their box. They were silent for a long moment, weighing the relatively cheap cost of that information against what someone like Jacoby might do with it. They blew out a long breath and shook their head.
"There's a whole crew watching the high side of the park,"
the festival goer said.
"Don't know how many for sure. They look like bad business, though. Packing real heat, you get my drift."
"Good,"
Jacoby said. He dug into one of his belt pouches and brought out a strange fruit. It looked almost like a ripe cherry, but it was a dark purple instead of the usual healthy red one would expect.
"You see Roar, you give him my regards."
"Sure thing,"
the box dweller said, pulling back into their street shelter.
"Hope for your sake things turn out to your liking."
A non-committal well-wishing that couldn't be bound into a trick pledge. They had spent a lot of time among the lost. Jacoby emerged from the alley and took a second to get his bearings. Once he was sure where he was, he set off to the northeast at a ground-eating stride. There weren't a lot of people on the street this time of night, and those who were got out of the ogre's way in a hurry. He reached the city's main park in 20 minutes, and as soon as he crossed under the iron gate, he could feel the magic of the portal. The rip in reality gave off a lingering, floral scent underlaid with poison and danger. The hedge wanted you to come in, but it was never shy about telling you exactly what it was. A man stepped out of the shadows. He was long and lean, with the shoulders of a former athlete and the hard stare of someone who'd done time in a dangerous profession. He had on a suit, but it was so poorly tailored it did nothing to hide the bulge of the heater under his arm. The ogre heard other footsteps converging from behind him, along with a low growl of whispers into microphones. "All right, big guy," the man said, holding up one hand while the other darted beneath his jacket. "Not so." Jacoby smashed his crook into the man's face without breaking stride, the wood connecting with his forehead. He stumbled, but he kept trying to get his weapon out. Jacoby snatched the man's wrist, snarling as he let a little glamour pump through his veins. He spun the gunman around as easily as he would a child and flung him bodily out of his way. The man hit the grass and rolled, fetching up against a bench. Jacoby turned and found 3 other washers in similar attire. All 3 of them had guns in their hands. All 3 of them had him covered. Jacoby planted his crook in the ground and leaned on it.
Help you?
He asked.
Shit!
A woman in a black blazer said. She lowered her weapon and gestured at the others to do the same.
Where are you going, Jacoby?
One did as she instructed. The other kept his gun leveled, but took his finger off the trigger.
Back to the green,
he said, nodding over his shoulder at the hedge maze in the center of which held the gate.
They're gonna be a problem?
You made it a problem, the third man snarled.
Ben, put your gun away,
the woman said.
This guy's being real patient with you. You don't stop being a problem, he'll feed you that clock, and I'll stand here and watch him do it.
Jacoby could tell Ben thought about it for a second. Then his buddy rolled over, groaning in pain, and he holstered his piece instead. Jacoby could feel the man's suppressed rage, and he smiled as he drank it in. It tasted bitter, but it would do for now.
You seen Wolf?
The woman asked.
Wouldn't tell you if I had,
Jacoby said evenly. She frowned at him, then holstered her weapon and tugged her jacket back over it.
Back to your posts,
she snapped, turning and walking back down the sidewalk.
Somebody get Smitty cleaned up, make sure he doesn't have a fracture.
Jacoby grinned and walked into the hedge maze, following the familiar pattern as he approached the center. If you wanted something done right, sometimes you gotta do it yourself.